Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, testing.
Just 1, 2, audio check. This is an audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nehemiah, check my levels on the. I got good drive in the monitors up here. Let me take these headsets off. 1, 2, 1, 2. All righty. So, good morning, everyone, and we are here audio checking. It's good to see everyone this morning. Test 1, 2. Am I hitting? Look on the mix down on the bottom. Am I hitting yellow down there? It should be green. Right in green, 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 green. All right, here's Dr. Rob. This is Dr. Robinson. We're about here. Test 1, 2. Still hitting. You can talk. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can talk back to me on the. I'm still green there. Audio check 1, 2. Thank you. All right. Good. Mr. Simmons. Mr. Simmons, you getting jumping? All righty. Mike, are you getting jumping needles on the TriCaster? Test 1, 2. Audio test 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1, 2, 3, 3. Good, good. All right. Thank you, sir.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, Jeff, how do you read us back there? Testing 1, 2. You good to go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mic check. The test of a man is the fight that he makes, the grit that he daily shows, the way that he stands up on his feet and takes life's numerous bumps and blows. A coward can smile when it's not the fear and noting his progress bars, but it takes a man to stand and cheer while the other fellow stars. You see, it isn't a victory after all, but the fight that a brother makes. A man, when driven against the wall, still stands erect and takes the blows of fate, with his head held high, bleeding, bruised, and pale, is the man who will win, fate defied, for he isn't afraid to fail. The test of a man, author unknown. Greetings and humble salutations, Rattlers. I am David H. Jackson III, a senior business administration student hailing from the capital city of Tallahassee, Florida. I currently serve as your Student Government Association president and FAMU Board of Trustee member for the 2018-2019 year, and I'll be presiding over the program at this Martin Luther King Jr. Convocation this morning. To President Robinson, trustees, faculty, staff, students, the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and the 35th General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Dr. Everett B. Ward, good morning. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands at moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." He also said that the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, he said, is the goal of true education. So as we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King, who would have been 90 years old this year, I challenge you first to make sure that you are standing up for things that matter and that you take advantage of this wonderful educational experience that we have here at FAMU. And second, that you learn to think intensively and critically, because as Dr. King said, that is the goal of true education. However, we should also remember that Dr. King cautioned that nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. So Rattlers, let's embrace the teachings of Dr. King, and as my campaign slogan said, let's simply do the right thing. Next, we will have the invocation by Reverend Joseph Jones, followed by the welcome by the president of the FAMU National Alumni Association, my brother, Colonel Gregory Clark.
Let us bow for the invocation. God of our ancestors, creator of all mankind, as we gather in this place, we invoke your presence as we reflect, remember, and celebrate the life of one of your greatest servants, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Father, may we embrace the love of mankind and the love of each other and the fight for justice and equality that he so embodied throughout his lifetime. Please, Father, empower us to embrace mercy, to do justly, and to walk humbly with our God. Father, we ask you to empower us to do unto others that which we would like be done unto us. And so, Lord, as we gather in this place, we ask you, God, to bless every participant. Bless this university. Bless our students. Father, may we strive to do that which is right. And Father, may we, at the end of our journey, be able to do and to say, we have fought a good fight. We have finished our course. We have kept the faith. Amen.
Good morning, Rattler Nation. To members of the Board of Trustees at Florida A&M University, to President Robinson, to members of our outstanding faculty and staff, to the best student body in the world, to the 35th General President of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Brother Dr. Everett B. Ward, who's our speaker this morning, to my brothers of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. On behalf of the Executive Board and members of your Florida A&M University National Alumni Association, I welcome you to the 2019 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Convocation. This morning, we celebrate the legacy of a giant and a great man. We look forward to enjoying the entire program and, most of all, keeping the memory of Dr. King alive. Again, welcome.
Good morning again. We are fortunate to have a very dynamic historian with us this morning who will present the occasion. He is one of Detroit's finest, Associate Professor of History, Dr. Darius J. Young. After he finishes his presentation, we will have a musical selection by the FAMU Gospel Choir. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Young.
Tell them not to mention I have a Nobel Peace Prize. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention I have 300 or 400 other awards. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention where I went to school. I like somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others. Say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness, and all other shallow things will not matter. To President Larry Robinson, Provost Eddington, our guest speaker, President Everett Ward, members of the board, fellow platform guests, students, colleagues, and all who are present, good morning. Dr. King spoke those words on February 4th, 1968, exactly 2 months prior to his assassination, to his congregation at Ebenezer Baptist Church, describing how he wanted to be remembered in the event of his demise. For the past 50-plus years, we have struggled with our remembrances of Dr. King and the civil rights movement as a whole. There is little doubt that King is the undeniable star of the civil rights movement, but yet we still must pause and ask ourselves, do we really know who King was? And do we really know what he stood for? I always tell my students that history is a way of remembering, but it can also be a way of forgetting. Meaning we can choose to remember individuals and events in ways that is most convenient and comfortable for everyone to celebrate and take ownership of. King, the movement's most defining figure, is oftentimes frozen in 1963, and his life, activism, and legacy is often summed up with him proclaiming, "I have a dream," during the March on Washington. We know little of the King who opposed the Vietnam War. who linked racism at home to militarism and imperialism abroad, or the king who advocated for economic equality, planned the Poor People's Campaign, and ultimately died while supporting a sanitation strike in Memphis. Today, in honor of Dr. King's 90th birthday, I would like to share with you an excerpt of a speech that King would often give at colleges and universities across the nation. The speech is entitled, "Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution." He would begin his speech by the retelling of the Washington Irving short story entitled, Rip Van Winkle. Now, those of you who are familiar, the one thing that we usually remember about the story is that Rip Van Winkle slept for 20 years. But there's another point in that story that is almost completely overlooked. It was a sign in the end from which Rip went up to the mountain for his long sleep. When he went up into the mountain, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down 20 years later, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. When Rip looked at the picture of Washington, he was amazed. He was completely lost because he knew not who he was. This reveals to us the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that Rip slept for 20 years, but that he indeed slept through a revolution. While he was sound asleep in the mountains, a revolution was taking place that at points would change the course of history, and Rip knew nothing about it because he was asleep. One of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change and yet fail to develop the new attitudes, the new intellectual responses that the new situation demands, and they too end up sleeping through a revolution. Meaning that we can be physically awake, but act as social and political zombies who are oblivious to the world changing around us. We must be the change agents that King challenged us to be. We cannot wait for another king to emerge and give us our marching orders. We must honor King's legacy by redeveloping a sense of community and responsibility for one another. King once said, no individual can live alone, no nation can live alone, and anyone who feels that he or she can live alone is sleeping through a revolution. King understood that the movement was not about him, the man, it was about the ideas he expressed. The great poet Victor Hugo said that there is nothing in all the world more powerful than an idea whose time has come. The dynamic idea of equality, the idea of freedom and human dignity that King expressed are as relevant today as they were 50 years ago. We best honor King's legacy by continuing the fight for freedom and equality. We must develop a sense of community and take responsibility for one another. King said, we are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. This leads me to my final point, that we must protect also the anchor of that black community and perhaps the most important institution to advance in the race, our black colleges and universities. In fact, if King was here now, he would tell you that he was not the leader of the civil rights movement and that he often took his cues from the women and men who attended HBCUs. King followed the lead of the students at FAMU, at North Carolina A&T, Alabama State, Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, St. Augustine, South Carolina State, Fisk, Tennessee State, and Bennett College, just to name a few. So FAMU, the hour has come for us to heed Dr. King's call to rise above all the limits of individualistic concerns and remain awake, alert, and creative through the next phase of this great revolution. Happy birthday, Brother King, and that is our occasion.
let me tell you all how proud I am to be a Rattler. My mother, Dr. Sheila Jackson, is a 3-time graduate of Florida A&M University. My father, Dr. David H. Jackson Jr., is a 2-time graduate of Florida A&M University. I am a senior here at FAMU. My sister is a freshman here at FAMU. So as you can see, Rattler blood is in my veins. Thus, I am truly fortunate at this time to introduce another professor of history and the associate provost and dean of the Graduate School of Studies and Research at the university, my father, Dr. David H. Jackson Jr., who will introduce the speaker. After he finishes the introduction, we'll have a musical selection by the University Wind Symphony and then the keynote address by Dr. Everett B. Ward.
Thank you, Trustee Jackson. To President Robinson, trustees, administrators, faculty, staff, students, friends, the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all this morning Dr. Everett B. Ward. Dr. Ward became the 11th president of St. Augustine's University on April 10th, 2015. He is the 3rd St. Augustine's University alumnus to serve as its president in its 152-year history. As president, Ward championed academic excellence and encouraged innovation in scholarship and teaching. He has launched initiatives to build interdisciplinary strength around global challenges while supporting expanded opportunities for experiential learning. Dr. Ward earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from St. Augustine's College. He went on to earn a Master of Arts degree from North Carolina State University and a PhD from North Carolina A&T University. Prior to having the honor of serving his alma mater as president, Dr. Ward served as the director of historically black colleges and universities and minority institutions of higher education program for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. In this role, Dr. Ward worked with university presidents, faculty, and staff in the areas of transportation curriculum, research and development, and student career development. As a dedicated servant leader in the community, Dr. Ward serves on several national, regional, and statewide boards to advance opportunities for students and citizens throughout the nation. He is a former member of the Democratic National Committee, where he served as vice chairman of the DNC Black Caucus. In 1989, Dr. Ward made history by becoming the first African American to serve as executive director of the North Carolina Democratic Party. Dr. Ward is a frequent speaker in areas of higher education, leadership development, and political and civic engagement. As a public leader, Dr. Ward was invited by the Taiwanese government to study the political, educational, and cultural institutions of the Republic of China. A member of Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule, and 100 Black Men of America, Dr. Ward also distinguished himself as a leader at all levels in Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He served as the local chapter president in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the Southern Region Vice President. And he did such a fine job as Regional Vice President that in July of 2016, Brother Ward was elected as the 35th General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So we're very happy to have Dr. Ward with us today as we celebrate the 90th birthday of our brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. here at FAMU, the home of the Beta Nu chapter founded by one of our fraternity's founders, Jewel Charles Henry Chapman, who was a professor of agriculture here at what was at the time FAMC. So I've known Dr. Ward for many years, and I'm here to sincerely say to you all that he's just an all-around good person. We like to call him a brother's brother. So ladies and gentlemen, after the next musical selection, prepare yourselves to hear from a master elocutionist and teacher, a man who is first of all, a servant of all, and who shall transcend all. My brother and friend, Dr. Everett B. Ward.
Good morning, good morning. Let us give our orchestra and gospel choir an extreme round of applause. Aren't they outstanding? Oh, we can do better than that in Rattlerland. Let's give them a round of applause. Truly, it is an outstanding privilege to see our students and our scholars perform in such a marvelous way. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for your generous introduction. It is indeed an honor to be on the historic campus of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, known around the world as FAMU. Give FAMU a round of applause. I am especially pleased to be with my colleague and highly respected research scientist and president of FAMU, Dr. Larry Robinson, and his lovely wife, Mrs. Robinson. Give Mrs. Robinson a round of applause. And I would like for you to join me. Today is a very special day, and I would like for you to stand and join me with a thunderous round of applause as we congratulate President Robinson on his birthday today, and also having recently been installed as the 12th president of FAMU. Give him a round of applause. Now, in my younger days, President Robinson, I'd start the tune of Happy Birthday. But having heard your gospel choir, I'm going to stick to the script that has been prepared. You know, HBCU presidents can do a lot of things, but one that I cannot do is sing. So, Brother President, happy birthday, and thank you for all that you do to serve this great university and be a role model for so many of us around the country. I also want to thank our student trustee and distinguished scholar and leader, Trustee Jackson, for presiding and doing such a wonderful job as a student trustee and student body president, and he is a member of the greatest fraternity in the world, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Give him a round of applause. I also want us to take a moment to pay great tribute to the Marching 100 who recently performed at the Rose Parade. Give them a round of applause. All those who are in the audience that are part of the 100 marching band, stand up and let's give them a round of applause. The Marching 100, give them a round of applause. The Marching 100, give them a round of applause. We are so proud of what you do here at FAMU and your leadership. It is my privilege to bring you greetings from the students, faculty, staff, and alumni of St. Augustine's University. As a fellow historically black college, St. Augustine's University, founded in 1867, takes great pride in celebrating our fellow universities in the HBCU community. So when I was asked to come to FAMU today to celebrate the life and legacy of Brother Dr. Martin Luther King, I found it with great honor to come and walk on these historic grounds. Founded in 1887, FAMU, along with historically black colleges, continue to serve as the preeminent intellectual community that produces young scholars who graduate with an unmatched commitment to providing service and professional development for our society. This nation, and indeed the entire world, has benefited from the exceptional graduates of FAMU and historically black colleges around the world. Give historically black colleges a round of applause. As General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, I am especially honored to walk the grounds of this great university. The 113-year history of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity is permanently linked to FAMU because one of our 7 jewels you may know as founders, Jewel Charles Henry Chapman, served as Distinguished Professor of Agriculture here at FAMU from 1924 to 1935. Jewel Chapman was the founder of Beta Nu Chapter on April 23, 1932. And 5 Alpha men have served as president of this great university. Dr. Lee, Dr. Gray, Dr. Gore, and Dr. Humphreys all served with notable distinction as president of this great university. And for the men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Brother Moses General Miles, former Dean of Students, was a fraternal icon as a professor and as a staff member here at FAMU. And before we go any further, please join me in recognizing the men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity who are here today. Please give my brothers a round of applause. My brothers of Alpha, would you please stand and be recognized? All men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, in the sound of my voice, please stand and be recognized. Thank you, my brothers. I remind these brothers every day they have given me the best non-paying job I've ever had, and for that I am eternally grateful. During the month of January, people throughout the nation and around the world will rightfully pause and pay tribute to the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. On Tuesday, January the 15th, 2019, Dr. King would have celebrated his 90th birthday. Born on January the 15th, 1929, Dr. King's life represented the ultimate price of human sacrifice and spiritual leadership. Too often in our celebratory reflections, we fail to acknowledge that Dr. King was an unapologetic millennial long before the term was created, that refused to accept the traditional boundaries, Southern race-based customs, unjust laws, and American second-class citizenship. At age 15, Dr. King entered Morehouse College as a 26-year-old millennial. And now I'm talking to our young scholars who are with us today. At age 26, he led the Montgomery bus boycott. At age 31, he supported the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, better known as SNCC, on the campus of Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it was SNCC students, as university students, on an Easter vacation, organized to lead the Student Strategic Organization in opposition to Jim Crow laws throughout the South and indeed throughout America. On August 28, 1963, at age 35, Dr. King lifted the veil of American consciousness with the profound message of a dream rooted in justice and freedom for all people, regardless of the color of their skin, in the true measure of American democracy. And it was on April the 4th, 1968, God called his servant home at age 39 from the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. His mentor and Morehouse College president, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, spoke these words during the eulogy of Dr. King, and I quote, "Martin Luther spoke to America about war and peace, spoke to America about social justice and racial discrimination, spoke to America about its obligation to the poor, and spoke to America about nonviolence." From age 15 to 39, Dr. King transformed the world because he was unwilling to accept traditional limitations. Today, as university men and women, my fellow FAMU HBCU leaders, you must embrace the King legacy, not to accept traditional limitations. Today, you must embrace the true legacy of Dr. King and not the manufactured commercial profile of Dr. King that would only regulate him to a speech where he talked about a dream at the Lincoln Memorial. Dr. King was much more than a one-time orator at the Lincoln Memorial. So I say to you, as we continue the legacy of Dr. King, I want to share some words from Dr. King that he spoke in a speech in 1968, a speech he entitled "A Proper Sense of Priorities." Dr. King stated, "There comes a time when you must take a position that is neither safe nor political, nor popular, but one must take it because one's conscience tells one that it is right." The question before us today, are you willing to do what is right? Are you willing to do what is right? In January 2019, my fellow FAMU men and women, in the midst of the resurgent racism, voter suppression, and violent attacks on African American men and women, increased hate crimes, and institutionalized prison pipeline system that is disproportionately represented by men of African descent, I ask you the question again, are you willing to do what is right? On this day, as we gather to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King, we must ask ourselves that urgent question, are you willing to do what's right? As we prepare to answer the question, it's critical that we remind ourselves that this scholar, this preacher of the gospel that we celebrate today, along with his loving and supportive companion, Coretta, were two individuals with enormous choices in the 1950s and the 1960s. Together, Martin and Coretta made the conscious decision to take the first step, regardless of personal sacrifice, for the forever uplift of society. As university men and women matriculating in the African American HBCU experience, it's imperative that you accept the King legacy of servant leadership. Without reservations, I'm confident that you are receiving an exceptional academic foundation that will prepare you for unprecedented professional leadership. However, in the tradition of HBCUs have always provided exceptional scholars who simultaneously accept the dual responsibility of scholarship and servant leadership. Dr. King, a graduate of Morehouse College, accepted the dual responsibility of scholarship and servant leadership. Today, more than ever, we need a new generation of courageous scholars to answer the call of servant leadership. Dr. King, at age 26, didn't wait for ceremonial endorsements for his actions. He witnessed injustice and answered the call of leadership. This great university has a long-standing tradition of producing young, courageous, tenacious leadership. I just want to mention two today. Today we celebrate, just in the shadow of this state capitol, State Representative Ramon Alexander, a former FAMU student body president who was just recently named the minority whip in the Florida House of Representatives. Let's give him a round of applause. Young leadership sitting in the House in the Capitol, responsible for legislation in that chamber. That's what we've got to be about, and that's what you've got to be about as young people. Representative Alexander is a true example of courageous and tenacious leadership. Former FAMU student body president and former FAMU trustee and a former president of the National Bar Association, Attorney Darrell Parks, is another example of FAMU leadership that's unwilling to stand for the status quo, to stand for what is right, to accept servant leadership as his call to mantle, and now he serves as the National Legal Counsel for our fraternity. So today, we have to remember Dr. King not with celebratory singing of just "we shall overcome," or "I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around." We've got to celebrate Dr. King by embracing his tenacity and his leadership of service to others. That's what we've got to do to celebrate his 90th birthday. The nation joined FAMU. We joined you Rattlers. You had Falcons and Bears and Bulldogs and Broncos all over the country joining you as we applauded the leadership of gubernatorial nominee Mayor Andrew Gillum, a graduate of FAMU. Give him a round of applause. Mayor Gillum made us all proud of the way he ran his race for governor. And I say to you that we are hoping that he will make a decision to run for office again. Give him another round of applause. For the young FAMUs who are here today, remember that Mayor Gillum was first elected to the Tallahassee City Commission at age 23. 23 years old. For generations, HBCU education and servant leadership has cemented these two components together. But I want to talk to you about some more. Weren't we proud when Georgia gubernatorial nominee Stacey Abrams, a Spelman graduate, at age 45 was a nominee for governor in the state of Georgia? A Spelman lady joining and coming saying, "Here I am, I will serve." That's leadership. Don't we celebrate that the current mayor of the city of Birmingham, Mayor Randall Woodfin, a graduate of Morehouse College, at age 37, is now serving as the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. Now, for my historians who are here, Dr. Jackson and Dr. Young, but for the new generation, I don't know about you, but what I've learned is that you have to speak truth and pass the legacy on. Do you think, can you only imagine what Dr. King is thinking in the heavens looking at us now at age 90. When he was walking and protesting injustice, that today in 2019, we would see an African-American male to be the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. Do you think that in his home state of Georgia, that he would have lived to believe that one day a graduate of Spelman College, the same college of his mother and his sister, that would produce a nominee to be governor of the state of Georgia? This is the hopes and the aspirations that you must take on for a new generation. Here we are today, celebrating 90 years of Dr. King, and just in walking distance, a graduate of FAMU is the minority whip in the State House. God is good, and as the choir sing, that light and that dew in the morning is what Dr. King dreamed about, but it is us, the living, that must carry on his dream and carry it to even higher heights of achievement. Are you with me? Are we going to do it together? We are going to carry his dream on. We must refuse to sit in silence and witness the resurgence of white supremacy in America. Therefore, we must follow the Dr. King who walked from Selma to Montgomery, the Dr. King who endured death threats but marched anyway and spoke against injustice, regardless of the conditions. Are you willing to stand against injustice in 2019? Are you willing? Are you willing? Are you willing? Are you willing? We must refuse to sit in silence when blatant and racist verbal attacks are directed to people of African and Haitian descent, which underscores the lack of understanding of the enormous contributions that Africans have made and people of Asian descent have made on this nation. We cannot sit in silence when racially coded messaging divides this nation and attempts to return this nation back to the darkest days of America. I don't know about you, but I vowed that I would never take any backward steps, and I'm not going to live today in 2019 and see us go back to days when we are racist and divided as a nation based on the color of our skin. Our ancestors died and fought in every war in America so that we could have the freedom to enjoy the promise of America. And I'm never going back. As the son of a grandson and a great uncle who fought in World War I, when people start talking about American democracy as if people of color weren't a part of that, I say, how dare you say that? We had African American soldiers, men and women who fought in every war, and democracy belongs to all of us. And new generations should not have to fight the same fight that our ancestors fought. The new generation, you are the ones that must take on the mantle of leadership. So in January 2019, in order to properly honor Dr. King and do what's right, we must join the fight against voter suppression. Every time someone tries to block us from having access to the vote, we've got to say we are even more determined to vote. We are even more determined to have what in North Carolina they said you got to have a voter ID, a picture ID. I said, that's all right. If my grandparents could walk miles to vote and our ancestors had to look to see how many balls were in a jar, I certainly can get a picture ID and go vote, because there was a time in American society that based on the color of your skin, you could not vote. We must remember that it was Dr. King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, and so many others who gave their lives so that you could have the right to vote and decide how democracy would work in this nation. So today in 2019, as we honor Dr. King, I tell everybody, I feels no way tired. And I know that as an English major, that may not have been grammatically correct. But, Brother President, I remind everybody, we weren't always university presidents. And sometimes you have to make it plain. I feels no way tired. So we're going to keep fighting and keep struggling for freedom and justice. We must not rest until we stop children living in poverty. 21% of children in Tallahassee live in poverty. So the mission that's before us is still as real today as it was when Dr. King was alive. We must celebrate the Dr. King who met with presidents and members of Congress for the pursuit of full citizenship of all people, and not for personal political appointments or for an invitation to go to a state dinner. In honor of Dr. King, we must intensify our presence in Washington, especially now. FAMU students need to go to Capitol Hill. We need to be there to say to the decision makers in Washington, you are there because we put you there, and you are going to be held accountable. How many of you are going to go to Washington, especially now when they're talking about building walls instead of talking about education, health care, and what's needed in American society? That's what we've got to be about. Today, it's imperative for each of us, regardless of our social status, our educational attainment, our physical condition, retired or current workers, young, old, we've got to come together because the struggle is continuous. Injustice is around us every day. Discrimination is trying to raise its ugly head again. Racism is coming like we've never seen it before. But I know that we are a determined people, and Dr. King is saying to us that as you celebrate my 90th birthday, don't feel no ways tired. Keep on keeping on. So I want to say, and I'd be remiss if I did not celebrate today members of the Divine Nine who are celebrating during the month of January the founding of those great organizations. Would the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority please stand? Celebrating their founding in January. Would the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta sorority please stand, also celebrating their founding in January? Would the men of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity please stand as you celebrate your founding in January? Would the men of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity please stand as you celebrate your founding during the month of January? In this endless fight against injustice, voter suppression, police brutality, unbalanced access to quality education, the sustainability and future of historically black colleges, we, the members of the Divine Nine, must unite our collective strength for the advancement of our people. As members of our respective organizations, we must unite against the ills that attempt to destroy our communities. As an unjust society does not recognize the colors that we wear, when you're shot down in the streets of America, they don't ask if you're an Alpha, a Kappa, or a Sigma, or an Omega. We are guilty as charged based on the color of our skin. So we've got to unite against voter suppression. We've got to unite to make sure that all children have access to quality education. We cannot be consumed with step shows and rituals while black boys are being shot down in the streets of America. We've got to stand united. So I say to you, as the General President of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, it's going to take all of us. No one can be left out of the struggle. Yes, Dr. King was an alpha, a proud member. But the day that he was shot on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, he was standing with a member of Omega Psi Phi. There was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi standing with him. There was a member of Phi Beta Sigma standing with him on that balcony. Freedom and justice cannot be lost in division. Coming together, united, that's what we must do. It doesn't matter if you're a student at FAMU, it doesn't matter if you're a student at Morehouse, it doesn't matter if you're a student at St. Augustine's, Howard University, Fisk University, Bethune-Cookman. The threat to historically black colleges involves us all, and the sustainability of historically black college, the premier producers of African American intelligentsia, must be our order of the day. And that's what we've got to continue to be about. So FAMU, regardless of popularity, do what's right. FAMU, when confronted with injustice, do what's right. FAMU, when conservative ideology attempts to turn back the clock on humanity, especially against people of color, FAMU, do what is right. FAMU, when communities need a voice of leadership to protect the least of these, be the voice for the voiceless. FAMU, when others travel the highways of apathy, take the airplane for righteousness and do what's right. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. King that I use as my clarion call every day. Dr. King said, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." So as we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King, I say to you, my fellow rattlers, don't feel no ways tired. Don't get caught up in celebratory celebrations of Dr. King only on January the 15th. There are 364 other days that require you to stand against injustice and discrimination. So Dr. King would say to us today, keep on climbing, keep on fighting, and never take any backward steps. And for God's sake, make our ancestors proud to know that they have placed the baton in the hands of a new generation. No matter the age, Dr. King, from 15 to 39, didn't ask for permission to be a leader. He said, I'm going to lead because it's the right thing to do. And I say to you, as we celebrate his 90th birthday, now more than ever, we must do what is right, and we must be unwavering in our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for all people. God bless you, and God thank you.
Everybody, please join me in giving Dr. Ward another round of applause. Dr. Ward, thank you so much for coming to our campus and speaking to us. You are a true inspiration. For rattlers who have been around here for a while, you know that there's a treat in store for you that is unique to how we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King here at FAMU. Dr. Ward and others, we invite you to witness a special selection of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, performed by Dr. James Moran and accompanied by the University Wind Symphony. After which, we'll have a presentation by President Robinson, followed by We Shall Overcome, the anthem of the Civil Rights Movement, and we will proceed in that order.
And I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. And when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note which would guarantee, yes, black men as well as white men, the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America had given the Negro people a bad check, a check which had come back marked insufficient funds. So I say to you today, my friends, that I still have a dream that allowed me to sing with new meaning of my country, Tears of Thee. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim pride, from every mountain side let freedom ring. And when we allow freedom to ring, let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the high Atlantic Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. And when we allow freedom to ring, let freedom ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city. This will be the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, will be able to sing in the hands of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Moran. Every time I hear that, I am very moved. Thank you, sir. And thank you, the Symphonic Band, for that accompaniment. I do want at this time to make a special presentation. I think I've just heard one of the most phenomenal Martin Luther King Jr. commencement speeches since I've been here, 22 years next week. So I want to present this President's Award to Everett B. Ward, PhD, General President, it says here, but we may want to change that to General and President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and President of St. Augustine University, Raleigh, North Carolina, for serving as the keynote speaker for the Martin Luther King Jr. Convocation presented on this 10th day of January 2019, a very, very special day. A very, very special day. And it seems like so many great people were born in this month of January. Thank you, sir. So thank you. Thank you all for coming out this morning and sharing with us this very, very important program. Thank our speaker again for that outstanding, inspirational presentation. Rest assured that we have, they didn't wait on FEMA, they probably should have, but our football team, and led by Coach Woody Simmons, members of our Marching 100, led by Dr. Chipman, they got themselves organized to go out and help families impacted by that storm. They're not waiting. They're not waiting to get 39. They're doing it right now. They've been led by an outstanding array of faculty, staff, and administrators. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge some of them. In case you're wondering who are these people on the stage, other than those who have been on the program, there are just a few I want to acknowledge. First of all, we have Dr. Betty Grable, a member of the Florida A&M University Board of Trustees, and your faculty Senate president. We have the president, the provost, and vice president of academic affairs, Dr. Maurice Eddington, who recently agreed to serve in a very, very important position. We have several members of my senior leadership team. I would ask for them all to stand and be acknowledged at this time. And we have the ones that the students know most and can relate to the best. We have the outstanding deans and directors of Florida A&M University here on the stage this morning. Would you please stand? Thank all of you for your service to Florida A&M University. In the audience, we are pleased to have City Commissioner Curtis Richardson in attendance. County Commissioner Bill Proctor is here with us this morning. Distinguished professor and former president, Dr. Larry Rivers is here in the audience this morning. Thank you, Dr. Rivers, for joining us. We have some outstanding students here as well. We have Mr. and Ms. FAMU and the Royal Court. Would you please stand and be acknowledged? We have SGA leadership and SGA student leaders. Would you please stand and be acknowledged as well? We have the DRS Royal Court here in attendance as well this morning. Would you please stand? We have Ms. Teresa Frederick from Congressman Al Lawson's office here. Are you with us this morning? Would you please be acknowledged as well? Thank you for joining us. We have our retirees here who I spoke to yesterday at lunch. Thanks for the very generous lunch. They're here with us. Family retirees, would you please stand and be acknowledged? With outstanding faculty and staff of Florida A&M University, please stand and be acknowledged as well. Of course, this event is all about our students, but I do want to acknowledge all of you, but in particular, I want all of our student academic scholars to please stand and be acknowledged this morning. And so invariably I leave someone out, but here's one I don't want to leave out. I know he's not able to join us this morning because of another conflict, and that's Dr. Shelby Chipman, the director of the Marching 100. And so to all of the staff of the Marching 100 and also these outstanding students, I just want to tell you, you just don't know how proud you made us feel when we sat in the stands in the freezing cold, seeing you come down Colorado Avenue. It was an event of a lifetime. You were viewed by over 60 million people You know, you just can't put a dollar value on that. However, our incredible marketing team has done a preliminary assessment and said the amount of people and the amount of stations around the nation and the world that saw you come down Colorado Avenue has a dollar value of somewhere around $1.4 million. So you know, but I think that pales in comparison. Yeah, I wish I had that $1.4 million too. Boy, we could really get some new instruments with that. But that pales in comparison to the amount of pride that you generated in all of us, in particular those of us who were there, but even so those who were watching this on TV. I want to give a special acknowledgement to the 50 members, President Clark of the Miami chapter of the National Alumni Association, who came together on a flight from Miami to Los Angeles to witness this in person. I bet that was the most lively flight that American Airlines has ever seen. I do understand that we have in the audience a former member of our trustee board, vice chair of the board, Reverend Holmes. Reverend Holmes, are you here? Huh? Oh, of course. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for continuing to carry the torch, right? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at Florida A&M University, we pride ourselves in not only being a place of excellence within our student bodies, but as our speaker challenged us today, we have a long history of producing graduates, and even in many instances before they leave, students who go out and make a difference on the behalf of others. I have said, as your speaker this morning has said, where will that next generation of leaders come from who are going to address the needs of this community, who are going to tackle the injustices that are still out there that we didn't quite fully extinguish? They're going to come from this 105 collection of outstanding institutions that we call historically black colleges and universities. And we are just proud at Florida A&M University to be among them. Sacrifice and scholarship is in our DNA. We don't take our motto of excellence with caring lightly. We live by that each and every day. So Dr. Ward, as I get more people to acknowledge, it is so happy to have you speak today on this very, very important topic of how do we ensure that we keep this going. We cannot rest on our laurels. We can't wait for the second coming of Dr. Martin Luther King. We have to find some king in each and every one of us. And I know the young people in this audience, young and old, those who are us are getting older, will take the choice and take your challenge. We are with you, President Ward, as your words of Dr. King touched us this morning, that a person ultimately in this country will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We're not quite there yet. There's some people out there who still have it confused. Some people don't realize that the young people here at Florida A&M University and at your institution will go on and do great things. Some people don't seem to recognize that for this country to be truly great, all of the people here and all of the students who are attending this 105 institutions need to take on a meaningful role in this society. They don't need to be bounded by artificial means. They need to be encouraged to do more. Just think what this country would be like if we just unleashed this talent on this nation and on this world. Well, we're not going to wait for others to give us permission. We're going to do it anyway. This is Florida A&M University. You know, we adopted a theme for my recent inauguration that seemed like it was a long, long time ago. Together we rise. I think Dr. King would think that that's a great way to embody all of what he was about. We can't get there individually. We have to get there together. But each and every individual must do his or her part. You can't wait on your neighbor. You can't wait on your roommate. You can't wait on your parents. You can't wait till you get the best and ideal job. You got to do it now, right? This nation needs you. Perfection will be the last thing done. If we don't do it now, we will never realize the potential that this country can really be with your help. We need more scientists, engineers, teachers, doctors, lawyers, nurses, pharmacists, etc. But more so, we need more people who are determined to ensure that America lives up to the true meaning. Its true meaning. That's what we need. We need more people like you who are willing to carry on the fight. We will rise together, because if we don't do it together, we just can't get there. We have in this country many, many times tried to do it for people who lived over here, people who went to this type of school, people who went to this type of church. We can't get there that way, folks. We need to take on the challenge of each and every one recognizing how valuable you are in the overall scheme of things. So Dr. Ward, you gave us a meaningful challenge this morning, right? It resonated with all of us. It ought to stay with you, not only throughout this one day or the period that we celebrate Dr. King's great legacy, but it ought to stick with you throughout your lives. This is something that you will need to do, because as you go back home, as you go back to your classes, just remember and take time to reflect upon what you heard this morning. And so that, for me, so that when I go home tonight, I will be able to enjoy myself. I must acknowledge my wife, Sharon, of 34 years. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my remarks. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
First, as we close, let me thank you all for allowing to preside over the program this morning. It has been my honor and privilege to serve you all. Next, we will sing our alma mater, another selection by the Wind Symphony, and finally, the benediction by Reverend Jones. We ask that as we sing the FAMU alma mater, that there be no walking or talking during this sacred moment. Again, thank you, Rattlers.
Let us receive the benediction. Father, we thank you for what our eyes have seen, our ears have heard, and our hearts have been made to believe. Father, we ask you to empower us with your grace, with your love, with your mercy. Help us, oh God, that we might not only embody the scholarship and service, but Lord, that we may embody the love and the justice and the care for one another that Dr. King exemplified. We thank you, Lord, for this day, for a celebration of a life well lived. We thank you and we praise you. Amen.